Okay, perfect. Okay. Thank you everybody for joining us. I'd like to start off by thanking Rabbi Greenblatt and the Kollel for giving me the opportunity to work through the sugya and share some of these ideas with the Olam. Okay, so as you see, the title is Mechiras Chametz, is it really sold? What we're going to try to discuss today is various parameters of what we are familiar with is the minhag of Yidden for hundreds of years to sell their chametz to a guy before Pesach, and with the clear-cut intention of buying it back after Pesach and getting our Cheerios back. So how do we view the sale? Are we going to view it as a halachically valid sale, that really it's a full-fledged sale, and if the guy really wants, he can take it all and we'll be left starving after Pesach? Or do we understand the sale as just a feeble attempt to circumvent certain Torah laws, and it's kind of a nice trick, but it's not really halachically valid a sale? So that's the question on the table. So I would like to start with a shaila, a question that was posed to the Baal Shiur Meshiv. The Shiur Meshiv was a Paisik. He lived in the mid-1800s. He was a Rav. His biggest Rabbanus was in the town of Lemberg. His name was Rav Yosef Shaul Nathanson. He wrote volumes and volumes of Chuvas that were posted in all Dalach Chakei Shulchan Aruch. He was posed the following question by a Rav from a small neighboring town. I forgot exactly the name of it this minute. And this is the following case that happened, or maybe happened. You're not sure if the case exactly happened like this, but this is the case he's going to write about. And from this case, I want to use it as a springboard to discuss various parameters of the Mechira. The case is as follows. We have a guy, we'll call him Ruvain, who owned a schnapps business. Good old, good old brandy. And he has a warehouse full of barrels and barrels of good chametz schnapps that he supports his family from the whole year. Comes Pesach, as he does every year. He has to close up the shop for Pesach, and sell it to a guy before Pesach. He sells we'll give it $1 million worth of schnapps. He sells $1 million worth of schnapps to the guy before Pesach. Goes to the town Rav, sells it, comes back after Pesach, and gets back his goods. Pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, one year, Ruvain goes to the usual Mechira, and on Chol Hamoed Pesach he passes away. He has a heart attack. He's no longer with us. So now Ruvain's two sons step up to the plate after Pesach. After they finish their shiva, after Pesach, a week or two later, they say, okay, now it's time to divide the cash. Our father left us a big business behind. Let's get down to business and let's split up the family business. You'll take, and so the Bechar, the older son, says, well, I'm the Bechar. A Bechar gets Pishnayim, gets double the inheritance, as opposed to you, my younger brother. You're just my younger brother. So even though there's only two of us, the way a Yerusha would work, if let's say, for example, there's two sons, we would, instead of splitting into two equal parts, we split into three parts, for simplicity's sake. The Bechar takes 2/3, and the regular son takes 1/3. So the Bechar turns to his younger brother and says, well, I'm going to get 2/3 of $1 million, and you'll get 1/3 of $1 million, and we continue working the business like this. And the younger brother doesn't go for this so quickly. He says, not so fast. The halacha is that a Bechar only gets Pishnayim, he only gets double Yerusha with that which was liquid assets at the time of the Petira, time of the death. When our father died on Chol Hamoed Pesach, he didn't own the schnapps. The guy, we'll call him John for argument's sake, owned the chametz. John owns the chametz. John sold it back to the estate after Pesach. By him selling it back to the estate after Pesach, it's a new thing. The estate owns it, and now we split it 50-50, because a Bechar only gets Pishnayim in something which was actually owned by the father in a liquid state. Liquid here, no pun intended, even the schnapps is liquid. But during Pesach, here the father is not owner during Pesach. So again, this is the question we're going to use as a springboard to discuss the validity of this sale. Do we view the sale, if we view the sale as fully halachically valid with no questions asked, then presumably the younger son is correct. The younger brother is correct. The Bechar should not get Pishnayim. They should split the Yerusha 50-50, and everyone should walk away with $500,000 worth of schnapps. But if the older brother has a claim, has a taina, then he should get 2/3 of the business, and the younger brother should get 1/3 of the business. That was the question that was posed. Okay, so we're going to work it step by step. We're going to try to take an analysis of the Mechiras Chametz, and hopefully everyone can stick around for the next while until we get to the end. It's going to be a while. Okay, so let's just start with the preface of the severity of Issur of Chametz. Chametz, as we are familiar with, is a big no-no on Pesach. Many of us are already makbid it 6 months before Pesach. There are only certain areas in the house where we can eat Chametz. And there are at least 5 specific mitzvahs dedicated in the Torah to the issur of owning chametz, of getting benefit from chametz. It's a big, serious issur, and so much so that if a person chas v'shalom would eat b'mezid, a person purposefully would eat chametz on Pesach, he's chayav kares. That's pretty severe. The prohibition of owning chametz on Pesach is not as severe. It's a lav, it's asam min ha-Torah, but if someone owns chametz on Pesach, he just quote-unquote transgressed the avera, but he's not chayav misa. And the Chazal came along and said that if you own the chametz during Pesach, we will give you a kanas, we will fine you and tell you that chametz is asur b'ana after Pesach. So the fine for owning chametz after Pesach is only rabbinic in nature, but the issur is, min ha-Torah is da'oraisa. Now, as we know, we search for the chametz the night before Pesach, we burn the chametz, and our custom is we sell our chametz. Now, what are we selling? If we already made all our chametz hefker, so why are we selling our chametz? Because usually we have things that we want to keep on to, whether it's schnapps, whether it's Cheerios, cookies, cakes. So we don't want to include that in our hefker. We're not making that ownless, everybody. We want to we don't want to throw it out, so to speak. So we'll burn a couple dollars worth of chametz, maybe a couple slices of bread, but we're not throwing out our $100 bottles of schnapps or our case of cookies that we have in the freezer that costs us $50, whatever it is. So we want to sell it to a guy. So we'll arrange the sale for that chametz before Pesach. Now this sale, as we're going to discuss as we go further, we have to just clarify, this is not a din min ha-Torah. There's no source in the Torah that tells us that we should sell our chametz before Pesach. The Torah tells us we should destroy, tashvisu, we have to destroy our chametz. The Gemara also, there's no clear Gemara in Bavli, in Talmud Bavli, that discusses the mitzvah or the idea that everyone should sell the chametz before Pesach. There are certain specific cases which the Gemara discusses of if a person entrusts, like as a mashkon, as a collateral or something to a guy before Pesach, and the guy has it, and really the Jew owns it, whether or not that's a problem or not of owning chametz before Pesach. We're not going to discuss those cases, that's beyond the scope of this discussion, but there's no clear Gemara either that discusses in the Bavli an idea of it's an obligation or everyone should go ahead and sell the chametz. So what we do today, the search for chametz has precedent way back from the days of the Gemara. The mitzvah of destroying the chametz is also a din d'oraisa, and the Gemara clearly speaks about that and all the different parameters. We know we burn the chametz, but the idea of selling chametz, just want to make that clear, this is something that it's not, there's no early mention in the Gemara, at least in our regular Bavli, that it's something that we should all do. So what is the source for the fact that we all sell chametz? So the earliest source that all the places can quote is a Yerushalmi, which is on the first page of the booklet in number 1. The Yerushalmi is also the same thing in the Tosefta, which is a collection of brises. The Yerushalmi has the following case. I'll read it and I'll explain it. Yisrael the guy, a Jew and a non-Jew, Shaybayim Besina, they were traveling together on a boat, and Pesach is coming. It was Erev Pesach, seemingly. The chametz b'yad Yisrael, and the Jew had on him his rations, his supply of chametz. Harei zeh moicha l'guy, he can go ahead and sell it to a guy. Or you can give it to him as a gift. So that's case number 1. So the first case is you have two guys or more, whatever it is. You have a guy and a yid on a boat. The yid has an abundance of chametz. Pesach is coming. Doesn't want to transgress the issur of chametz, so he goes ahead and sells it to the guy. Okay, or gives him as a present, as long the Yerushalmi stresses. And then the Yerushalmi continues, says, and then the yid could go ahead and reacquire it and buy it back from the guy. La'achar Pesach. As long as you've given it to the guy full-fledged, full-heartedly, here it is, Mr. Guy, here's all my chametz, please have it. The Yerushalmi says it's permissible to buy it back from him as long as you gave it to him 100% properly. The next case, a little difficult to read, but the explanation is as follows. A yid could tell the guy, you see a guy, a yid sees a guy going on the way to Schnuck, and you strike up a conversation. He says, I'm going to buy a box of Cheerios. And you say, you're going to buy a box of Cheerios. Well, I know you only need one box, but I have 2 boxes at home. Why don't you buy 2 boxes of Cheerios? And as Yerushalmi continues, and the next case or instead of going to buy from a guy, buy the kach l'chami, so come buy Jews' own chametz. Buy my box of Cheerios. It's great. Shema et starech, these words are very important. Yerushalmi says, because the yid could tell the guy, because maybe, perhaps, I will require this chametz back, the ekach mimcha achar Pesach, and I will buy it back from you after Pesach. So here we see clearly a case where you are clearly implying to the guy that, please buy my chametz from me, don't go buy from Schnucks or somewhere else, even buy more than you need, and don't worry, give him the big wink. In case I need it, I'll buy back from you after Pesach. Yerushalmi, that's all we need for this point, is clearly saying that this type of sale works, and you can go ahead and sell it to a guy again as long as you've done a valid transaction, whether it was a full-fledged gift or it was a valid sale. As long as you did it properly, it works, and you can buy back after Pesach and enjoy your chametz. Okay?
From what the Lashon says, the Ekach Mimeno Achar Pesach Vachi Nerlo Matana Gemura, as opposed to Mechiras Gemura?
I don't think I understand that it's a valid point that Yerushalmi only stressed you have to give it to him as a full-fledged matana. I'm not sure if it's a question why the Yerushalmi only said that case. Why not say as long as you give it to him as a full-fledged sale? Okay, because maybe as a sale, there's less of a reason to be suspect. If I sold it to him, right? So obviously full-fledged. If I give you a gift, then maybe I'm really, inside not really I'm not really wholeheartedly giving it to you because I'm giving it to you as a gift. If you give me $100 cash, so it's easy for me to understand that of course I sold it to you. Here's I have $100 in my hand. Yeah. Right. Either one works, but the emphasis that Jake is pointing out that the Yerushalmi says you make sure the matana is gemur. Why don't we emphasize that the mechira has to be gemur? Because I think we can explain that a mechira is usually gemura unless for some reason you speak it out otherwise. If I tell somebody, here's this box of Cheerios for $5 and he gives you $5, why would I think that I didn't sell it wholeheartedly? I got the cash, he got the product, it's all good, case is closed. If I'm giving someone a free box of Cheerios, then we have to emphasize, make sure when I give it to him, I'm really giving it to him wholeheartedly and I'm not retaining anything on that box. Okay. So, we see clearly, this to emphasize from this Yerushalmi, that although the Yid is really hinting to the guy in a strong fashion that he might need it after Pesach, nonetheless, it's valid as long as it's given over properly. Now, comes along the Rishonim, the Ritva, which is number 2 on this on that page. This Ritva is in Psachim on Daf Chafal from a base. He quotes this Yerushalmi, but he adds 3 big words. He says, it's in this paragraph, Ubilvad, it's the end of the 4th line of the paragraph. The last one line is Ubilvad. The Ritva writes, Ubilvad shelo ya'arim. This is all permissible as long as you don't do any trickery. Says the Ritva, what does it mean, Ubilvad shelo ya'arim? The Ritva continues, Aval ya'arim, you don't do any trickery. Aval, imherim, but if you do a form of trickery, who ragalasakain, says Ritva, what does that mean? It's something you're accustomed to doing. B'chol shanim, every year. Limkar l'goy kadna Pesach, sell your chametz to a goy before Pesach, and velito acha Pesach, then to reacquire it from a guy after the Pesach. Says the Ritva, kansinale, we fine you, who aser loy ulekol yisol acha Pesach. It will become forbidden to you and to all Yidden after Pesach. Like we spoke about before, there is a general knas of any Yid who owns chametz over Pesach. He has transgressed a Torah law. But in the Torah law, if I keep chametz in my rishos, although I'm doing an aveira, I am allowed to use it after Pesach, according to Torah law. Chazal asked us from using chametz that we kept in our house over Pesach as to deter us from keeping it. So again, the Torah law tells me there's a law, it's a prohibition. Chazal tell me there's a knas. The Ritva is extending this knas, this fine, to somebody who sells his chametz every single year to a guy and always buys it back. So the guy already knows this is a protocol. This is. You choose different guys over here, huh? All right. I'm not sure. Doesn't speak it out. But the Ritva says if you go through this protocol every year of selling it to a guy and buying back, that will be a form of trickery. And he says Chazal would have knas you in such a case. Now, although the Ritva learns again, he's coming off these words ubilvad shelo yarim, which was his girsa, which was his edition of the Yerushalmi, but our Yerushalmi doesn't have these words ubilvad shelo yarim. Now, the Ritva understood these words, like we just spoke out, that this means someone who's doing it every year. The Beis Yosef, which is number 3 on this page, brings a different shot from the Rebbeinu Yerucham, another Rishon, and the Rebbeinu Yerucham writes, it's in the bracketed off area, on the end of the 3rd line, he says also, ubilvad shelo yarim, eini mevin dvarav. Ask the Rebbeinu Yerucham, I don't understand what these words mean, ubilvad shelo yarim, I shouldn't do a form of trickery. The hashari litnoi la'akam b'matana, it's 100% permissible to give it to a guy as a gift, to go ahead and reacquire it from him afterwards. He's saying, if you read the words carefully, I gifted it to the guy before Pesach, and then I bought it back from after Pesach. He says, that's for sure permissible. Even though this seems to imply a trickery, but it's permissible. Why? You're right, maybe it doesn't look like the most quote-unquote kosher act, but I put it out of my possession. I gave it over to the guy. He's clearly indicates that it physically left my reshus, it left my house, it went into the guy's house. I gave it to him full-heartedly. I bought it back from after Pesach. So why would I call this harama? Why would I say this is illegal? Okay, it's a good loophole, but it's a legal loophole. So therefore, it says the Rabbeinu Yerucham, the Beis Yosef is quoting, the efshir, so possibly we can explain what does the word the shelo ya'arim mean, that you should not do a form of trickery. The lo ya'arim means, hainu loy mashlo yimkar loy, v'lo yitin loy al tenai. You cannot give it or sell it to a guy on a condition. Meaning, again, we have our Yushami which says the sale is permissible. We have this girsa that the Rishonim have, that to add these last three words, Bilvad shelo ya'arim, you should not do trickery. We have to have the Rabbeinu Yerucham now coming forward and explaining this. What does it mean you cannot do trickery? It means I cannot make a stipulation at the time of sale. Here, Mr. Guy, here is the chametz for 1 week. Sell it back to me in a week. That will be an illegal procedure. But if I sell it full-heartedly and it's out of my possession, the guy owns it, whether I gifted it to him or I sold it to him legally, if I go ahead now, reacquire it after Pesach, says the Rabbeinu Yerucham, it's no problem. Everything was done properly according to the legal letter of the law. It's a documented sale. I can for sure do that. He doesn't have this problem with the ritzvah of saying that if someone does this every year, it doesn't smell good, and well, Kanasi will find you. Says the Rabbeinu Yerucham, that's 100% legally valid, and therefore the only pshat he has in this extra gear to Bilvad shelo ya'arim is that you cannot make it tonight, you cannot make a stipulation at the time that you're giving it to the guy, either gifting it or selling it to him, that some type of stipulation that you must sell it back to me, or you cannot eat it, and some stipulation that would imply that I'm not really selling it to you.
But the Yerushalmi does say you could say the ekach.
Right, I will buy. If you want to sell it to me, I'm going to be available to buy it back after Pesach. But to make that a stipulation in the sale that I'm only selling it to you on the condition that in 8 days from now, I'm going to sell it back to me, or I'll give it back to you, whatever, something like that. But if I make myself available, so listen, in case you want to sell it back in 8 days, so that's not a stipulation. That's just I'm letting you know a fact. I'll be available to buy back to you if you so desire.
Is that a legitimate sale? That's tonight.
If you make
down my sales to you on condition that I get to buy it back.
So often in other, not in this area of chametz, in other cases is a halakha principle that matana amanas lahaktir, I'll give you a gift on condition you give it back to me. In certain cases works, but here in chametz it does not work, and we're not discuss that why, but it doesn't work. To give someone, right, if an Indian giver or something like that, right? That in certain cases in halacha we do allow that permissibility, but here we're not going to allow it. Okay, so now let's just recap quickly what we said so far. We have the Yerushalmi as the source. There's no Bavli, there's no pasuk in the Torah that gives the source that we should sell, that people sell chametz before Pesach. The Yerushalmi is the source that it's permissible. The Yerushalmi speaks about two cases. One case of a guy in the boat selling his chametz. Another case of Stam, you're going over to a person in the street and you're initiating a sale with him. We have the Ritzvah, who codifies this carefully by saying that you cannot do this every year. It's only to be done once in a while. It doesn't say exactly how often you do it, but it can't be something which is done regularly. We have the Rabbeinu Yerucham, the Beis Yosef calling Rabbeinu Yerucham, that says it's 100% permissible. You could do it every single year as long as you do not make a stipulation in the sale. Now, the Shulchan Aruch, which is the Beis Yosef, when he codifies this halacha, he goes according to the opinion of Rabbeinu Yerucham. He does not bring this Ritzvah. Presumably he didn't have it, which is the Yad L'Shmaya for us. And therefore, the Beis Yosef is paskins, when Shulchan Aruch paskins that the sale is 100% valid as long as you don't make any stipulation in the sale to the guy. You can sell it to him and buy it back after Pesach. Okay. We're going to discuss that in a minute, how we fortify the sale. Okay.
Is the Yerushalmi chronologically before the Bavli in time?
Slightly before. Yeah. Okay. So now, also from what we have seen till now, it would seem that the Mechiras Chametz was a private affair between a Yid and a Goy. This was no public situation. Not everybody went to the rabbi, and the rabbi got, hundreds of shtaras, hundreds of documents, and went ahead and made the sale. It seemed like whoever had Chametz, whoever had something that he wanted to sell, if you owned a lot of schnapps, whatever the case was, you would go and find your local guy and wipe your hands clean from the Chametz and buy it back 8 days later. So I thought it was interesting in Zevin Sefer, Zevin, who was a walking encyclopedia, passed away in the late 70s, I believe. He was the originator of Encyclopedia Talmudis in the back, the whole yellow set. Prolific author. He has a sefer called Moyadim B'Halacha, the different various halachas of the Moyadim. It's translated by Arts also. And there, he is very interesting. He presents, based on a thorough analysis of various tshuvas, various responses to the Gedolei HaChodim, he tried to figure out when it became the custom that we sell our chametz through the Rav. We all know today, no one goes ahead and does a private sale, as far as I know, goes ahead and does a private sale with a guy. We all go to our rabbi, whoever that might be, and we arrange for him to do it for us. When did that come to be? When did this minhag evolve? So Zevin, by doing a careful analysis of various shuvas over a period of hundreds of years, he comes out that really this custom is only 200 to 300 years old at most, that we have arranged for the Rav to do it for us. And he speaks out, it's interesting, he quotes from various shuvas of the early achronim, let's say about 400 or 500 years ago, who were asked various questions that things got messed up in the sale. The Yid forgot to sign his name on the document, they forgot to pay for it, all types of things that were seemingly, how can you forget to sign a document and you give it over? Question, that was the question that was posed, and he sees from those chuvas it implies that people did private sales. He sees that if you follow through the era of the chuvas and you keep going 100 years later, you'll see that now the chuvas were questions of the Rabbanim had amongst themselves. How do we do the sale properly? So you see just, if you do a Jewish history, I guess, course, through reading chuvas of the achronim, which is a fascinating way how to learn history, you'll see that Rav Devin, it suggests that this whole idea of selling chametz is only a couple of hundred years old, but that's okay, because it became accepted. And he points out, as Devin points out, some of this is from him, some of this from other poskim, that there are numerous ma'alos, benefits in our current system. Meaning the benefits of that we go ahead and appoint the Rav a shliach, as opposed to making a private sale, has many benefits. I'm going to mention some of them. First of all, the Rabbanim know how to write stars properly, they know how to make the documentation properly. That's why they're the Rabbanim, and therefore they'll carefully word the star properly to make sure that it'll include all forms of chametz. Because many times people, if they would sell properly, they would think they only have one chametz product, and really they forgot about a whole shipload they had sitting in some warehouse somewhere else. Or many places speak out that it's appropriate nowadays to sell also if someone owns shares or mutual funds or stocks in chametz companies. You also want to sell it because you're not allowed to benefit from chametz over Pesach. So a lot of things that you might not think of up front, you go to the Rav, and based on his experience, he has a proper star that will guide us through selling the sale, making the sale properly. And other things, there's a lot of milas of doing this to the Rav, so everyone should do it to the rabbi. Now, there's another mila I know they do here in St. Louis, and I know other communities do it also. You don't just when you sell your chametz, you give your chametz over to the rabbi to sell to the guy, the rabbi's not acting alone. He gets together with all the other rabbanim in town here, the whole body gets together and does it. They form a bezdin. And the bezdin sells the chametz to a guy. Why do they do that? To the Yeshua's Malka, the Yeshua's Malka, who was Rabbi Yisrael Yehoshua Mikutna, was a great guy. His name, listen to this one, ready? His name was Yisrael Yehoshua. He was named after three people: Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Yeshua, the Pnei Yeshua, and Eliyahu Mizrona, the Goyim. So where it happened to Eliyahu? Ready? You take the end of the name Yisrael, the Aleph Lamed, and the beginning of his next name Yehoshua. So if you take the last two letters of Yisrael, Aleph Lamed, and take the first three letters of Yehoshua, that spells Eliyahu. He was a great guy, named after many great Goyim that came before him, and he writes a tshuva that even though he was named after his own Goyim, he was more heavily Chassidish than anything else. Chassidim took him as a big place. But he has a lot of tshuvas, and he writes that right. He writes that there's a milah for the Rav to work as a bez and sell chametz because, in case, as we'll see later, the Rabbanim do various kinyan and various forms of giving over, of solidifying the transaction to the guy. But for case for whatever reason it doesn't work, the Rabbanim will stand up afterwards after they sell the chametz to the guy and declare hefker bez and hefker. They have the right, since you appointed them, when we go to the Rav, we appoint him to take care of our chametz. We don't care who he sells it to, how he sells it. We just want it out of our possession. And we'd like to get it back afterwards also, but we want it to get out of our possession. So we're appointing to Rav to do whatever he needs to get rid of our chametz for us. So it says Yeshua's Malka, if he sells to a Rav and he works at the Bezdin, then he can get up. Also, he could sell to a guy, but in case some reason, something went wrong with the transaction, some legality that invalidated that sale, the Bezdin can now get up and say, wipe our hands clean and say, Hefker Bezdin Hefker. Okay. There's another mila of doing it. We're not going to have enough time, I don't think. And that's Hefker Bezdin Hefker is a concept that Bezdin has the right to proclaim our items ownerless, whether we like it or not. They can say, "Oh, you own that nice schnapps business, $1 million worth of beer or schnapps. We decided that you don't own it anymore." Bezdin has the right to it, whether I appoint them to do that or not. Now, this is not something which is regularly exercised at Bezdin. There's a question if it's even valid nowadays or not, beyond the scope of this discussion, but at least here, where I gave the Rav permission to get rid of my chametz, So here this Yeshua's Malka, this Tshuva is explaining that here I'm also given the right to do this hefker, and therefore it's an extra security that in case, for whatever reason, the sale didn't go through or other issues that might arise, our chametz will for sure be out of our shus. Now, you ask me, what do you mean? I say kol chamira. At the morning of Bir Chametz, on the 14th day of Nisan in the morning, I say kol chamira. So why do I need the Rav saying hefker for me? I also say everything is hefker, and I say the kol chamira. The reason for that is because when I say kol chamira, I'm not including my Cheerios that I have at home. Kol chamira of anything that I don't know about or that I don't want to keep. But I want to keep my schnapps. I want to keep those things. So I'm not being mad for those things. There I have the rabbi doing that for me, because if I'll be mad for the thing, I don't have to sell it all either. Okay. So we got that point good. If not, we're going to move on. There is one catch, Moshe Sternbuch Shlita from Eretz Yisrael points out, where now, if we're appointing the Rav to be a Shliach to sell a Chametz, it's something we have to be very careful about. He says it's customary for, I guess, since the time when they started selling the Chametz to a guy, that when the Yid would go to the Rav to appoint him to sell the Chametz, the Yid would give the Rav some money. Something, a nice donation, thank you for your effort. It's a time where you could show appreciation to the Rav for things that's throughout the year, or at least for helping validate the sale for you. And he writes that seemingly it's just a nice minig, but it's not a halachically bound minig. It's something that it's nice and customary to give the Rav some type of nidava at this time of year. Says the Moshe Sternbuch, I'm going to tell you now that it's an obligation to pay the rabbi to sell a chametz. Why? He says, because what are you doing? When I go to the Rav to sell my chametz for me, I'm making him my shliach. I'm making him my messenger to carry out the mission for me. We have a chazaka, we have a principle, a rule. We are allowed to assume that if I appoint a messenger, he's going to do the job for me. That's why I asked him to do it for me. However, it says that Moshe Sternbuch, we're not going to get involved now with all the riots. I just want to bring out the point that this chazaka, this principle that allows us to trust a shliach that he did the job for us, is only for dinei dirabbanan, only for things that are rabbinic in nature. Anything which is minat Torah and needed to be done, there's a valid opinion of the Paiskin that chazaka, that principle is not applied. So if I want the Rav to sell my chametz for me, and I don't want to have to call him back Erev Pesach morning, or he doesn't want to get called back by 200 people Erev Pesach morning, Rabbi, you sell the chametz or not, you give the rabbi money, you pay him, whatever you're going to give him, and then he becomes your poel, he becomes your worker. A worker who is being paid, you're allowed to assume, even on a biblical level, even mid'oraisa, that he's doing his job. So by you giving flipping the rabbi $100, whatever you're giving him, you are now telling him, do this job for me, and you're my worker, so to speak. And you'll say it in a nice term, obviously you're not going to call him your worker, but in a bakavadika fashion, right? And that way, you don't have to call him and make sure it was done, because you can rely on the fact that he's your worker, he's doing your job. Says the Moshe Sternbuch, but if you don't do that, and you're just relying on him to do it, then really, he says, you should call the rabbi Erev Pesach and bother him on the phone, and Rabbi, did you sell my chametz or not? Are you sure? Okay, fine, good. And if you have to do that with the whole congregation before Pesach, it will be very time-consuming and wasteful for the rabbi. So Moshe Sternbuch is very pro, he himself is a Rav, and he writes that he's very pro making sure the Rav gets a commission on the sale before Pesach. Okay. Now we're gonna try to blitz through the various kinyanim, the various four. That Moshe Sternbuch I spoke about, by the way, was number 4 in this booklet. I didn't read it through, but you'll see where it's bracketed off. That's where Moshe Sternbuch speaks it out. Now I want to try to blitz through many of the various kinyanim, forms of acquisition that are practiced by the Rabbanim. We're not going to go into detail about any one of them, just to mention that we're going to show that there are about 5 to 6 different kinyanim, forms of transactions that the Rabbanim do before they do this whole hefker business, before they make it ownerless, that are going to validate to show that this is a full-fledged sale. Now the Mishnah on Kedushin tells us that mitaltlin, movable items, in order to acquire this sefer, it's a movable item, not planted in the ground. The way to be kainet is either through meshicha or through hagbah. By pulling it, it's something which can't be lifted, or something which could be lifted, I'll have to lift it up. That's the kinyan that works. Money alone, just simply paying for kesef, does not suffice for the kinyan. When I was in yeshiva, I was in the chabur with Rabbi Slidler, and we learned Parak Hazav together, and that chabura, and this is a big question of how money works for a kinyan or not. But okay, for metaltalin, for movable items, you need to have a kinyan that's tangible. Pick it up or move it. So here we have, now, that's the Mishnah on Kedushin. Now the Gemara in Bechayres has a machlokes if that applies only a yid to a yid, meaning if I'm getting something from another yid, I have to do a maitza kinyan, I have to do a physical action of either pulling it or lifting it. But how about if I do a kinyan from a yid to a guy? If I'm purchasing something from a guy, do the same principle apply or not? And of course, in typical Talmudic fashion, there's going to be a machlokes of Yechon and Reish Lakish, how the kinyan works. According to, get the sheet straight, according to Rabbi Yechanan, the proper method of a kinyan, of a transaction to the yid or the guy, is the same way of a yid to a yid, and therefore it will require, if the guy or is buying something from a yid, or a yid is acquiring something from a guy, a physical action is required. It must be Meshicha or Hagbah on the kinyan. Rish Lakish passes that for whatever reason, we're not getting involved in the reasons now, Rish Lakish passes that for a yid to a guy or a guy to a yid, money alone suffices. You do not have to do a Meshicha or a Hagbah, a lifting or a pulling of the item. Now how do we paskin? We have a machlekes in the Gemara. How do we paskin? Machlekes. Machlekes Rashi Taisus, how we paskin in the sugya. Taisus brings down this machlekes, and Taisus concludes that in order to fulfill both opinions, what do? We do both. If you want to validate 100% of kinyan between a yid and a guy in any matter, we're not talking about chametz here, we're talking about any matter. Anytime you want to have a transaction between a yid and a guy, you do two things. You take the item physically and you pay for it. And that's the halacha lechatchila. Shulchan Aruch paskins, when you're doing a kinyan between a yid and a guy, you should do both. Now, that is all good and well if there's a single guy selling, one box of Cheerios to a guy. Here's my box of Cheerios, take it home physically and give me $5, have a good yontif. That's very easy. But when we're dealing now with, as we said, the minig is the Rav sells the whole town's chametz, and he's selling from every guy's house a half a box of Cheerios, and he's selling the restaurants and factories and warehouses, and it could be millions of dollars worth of goods that are being sold. There's no way for the guy to go ahead and physically take possession of all those items. This is a problem. What are we going to do? We need a solution. So first of all, they're going to do kinyan kesef. The first kinyan that Rabbanim are going to do are do regular sale, a money transaction. They will get a down payment. Now the way it works, let's say for example, here you have in St. Louis, let's say roughly 500 people are selling their chametz through the Vada here, right? So let's say it equals roughly, just estimate $1 million worth of chametz. $1 million worth of chametz, there's no guy who's going to come over to Erev Pesach and give $1 million cash. He's got to be crazy. So what's going to happen? The typical case is what they do is the guy will come to the bezdin and he'll say, I really want to buy this chametz. I'm going to give a payment now. I'll give X amount of money I put down on the table, and the rest of it I'm accepting upon myself like a loan, like you loan me the money, and I have 8 or 9 days that I make exactly the stipulation, exact wording. You must pay by this date. If you can't come up with the money by this date, then you have to sell back stuff. Not that retroactively the sale was never valid, because that would not be good. We don't want the sale retroactively not to be valid. We want the sale to have been valid, but if you don't come up with the money by a certain time, we want you to sell us back the chametz. So, again, the first kinyan they're going to do is the kinyan kesef. The guy now, again, will not be able to give all the money usually in most cases, because it's going to be in the upper 6 to 7 digits dollars of money. So he'll give a down payment, so to speak, but accepting upon himself the obligation, that the rest of it is going to be like a loan to him, and therefore he has a certain time to pay it back. Who says he has no Gemir Sas?
He might doesn't want to.
Okay, we'll see. We'll get to Gemir Sas in a minute. 1 second. What's the condition here? Well, no, I mean, because that's like any sale. We're not selling. It's like any sale. I sell anybody something. It's self-understood. If you don't pay by the due date, the sale, we're going to have to sell back. I mean,
that's not considered all time, right?
That's not right. That's Sam Jackson. That's not. No, right. I don't want to be retroactive. Right. Careful nuance over here. Okay, there you have a problem, right?
Because the mighty doesn't want it.
Okay,
he might be a rich guy, but he doesn't,
in a minute. Hold on.
He could.
All right, let's keep moving. I've got a lot to do. We got to keep running. That's a good question. Seemingly, yes. We'll see why maybe in a minute. So the first kinyan we're going to do is kesef. They're going to sell it to the guy with kesef. The second kinyan they're going to do is a shtar, a document. They're going to make a legal document. Now, this document, according to most poskim, does not have to be in English necessarily, as long as the guy understands what it means. It could be in English. It doesn't have to be. Meaning, it could be a Hebrew document, as long as you explain to the guy, and it could be translated. Many documents could be accepted even in a secular court of law, as long as it's a legal document. If it's a foreign language, that doesn't invalidate the language. I think, and I have lawyers say, but I think that's accurate. As long as it can be translated properly. So we make a shtar and we sell it to him through a contract. Now again, that's questionable without getting involved in all machlekes about it, if that works or not. So, but we're covering all bases here. We did kesef. We're doing shtar. The third kinyan to do with the guy is called chalipin, which is like a barter transaction. The guy is going to give something of his to the bezdin as an exchange for all the chametz. Now usually it's not really a fair exchange, truth be told, because usually you use like a yarmulke for chalipa or a handkerchief. Now, handkerchief is not very common nowadays, and goyim don't wear yarmulkes unless they're the Pope. But usually he'll give something. He'll give a wallet. He'll give his watch. Something which is a barter for the chametz. Now, even though chalipin is a kinyan which doesn't have to be equal, meaning you'll say, what do you mean? It's $1 million worth of chametz. He's giving a $10 Timex watch, right? But that's not a problem when it comes to chalipin, for whatever reason, not to be beyond the scope of this discussion now, and that is another way of making a kinyan, and the bezin will be kind of that item from the, we'll pick it up, will be kind of from the guy, and that's a way of exchanging all the chametz to the guy's possession. That's kinyan number 3. Kinyan number 4 is kinyan agav. Kinyan agav is the permissibility of selling metaltalin items as a part of a real estate transaction, meaning when you sell, let's say you have an estate that's closing down, right? So often they'll try to get rid of all the, the appliances and the furniture in the house beforehand. But if you can't, you buy the house as is. When you buy that house, you're also buying everything that's in the house. I'm not making a separate kinyan on dining room table when I buy this house off the estate. I'm just buying the house. And whatever's in the house, I'm kind of. The way they do it is that they sell to the guy, or rent, depending. I'm not going to involve in that exact issue of it right now. The area where the chametz is located. So I live on 7949 Del Mar, and I'm going to tell the rabbi I have chametz in my pantry. So that closet pantry, those couple of tiles on the floor are being sold to the guy. That area, physical, he owns real estate now on 7949 Del Mar, right? So now, by buying that real estate, he's getting all the items that are located there physically. So he doesn't have to pick up my physical box of Cheerios per se, because he now owns a piece of my real estate. That's kinyan number 4. Kinyan number 5 is a tkiyas kas, a handshake, which has no source in the oraisa, but since this is a way that normal business transaction is done, or in the diamond business, you'll close the deal by saying mazel u'bracha. There's certain types of understood ways of gemir stas, of, what was the word? Gestures that imply that I'm serious about the sale. A handshake is something which is accepted as a commitment, and therefore that can be a kinyan. Now these are the 5 kinyan mentioned by Mr. Brura that the Rabbanim do to make sure, again, this is just cover all bases to validate 100% that the sale is valid. Greenback told me that Rav Kalevsky Zatzal from Neisel told him to do another kinyan, Asov Hashem Zalman Orbach also suggested to do another kinyan called Oidisa. This is also a kinyan which is not the Raisa, it's only the Rabbanim, but that basically does, for simplicity's sake, is that you stand up and you tell the guy or anybody, works for anybody, I am giving this to you. There was no physical transfer, there was no money involved necessarily, there was no document involved, just the fact that I'm saying straight up, here it is, it's yours, I don't want it, that puts it in, I have the right, again, it's not exact parameters of this, we're not going to get involved in, but this is a kinyan that Taisus calls the best of all kinyan for whatever reason. There's a big Taisus about this and other Bible claimants, and many Rabbanim, they do it here in St. Louis and other places also, they do this kinyan as another way, a 6th kinyan, to seal the case that it's for sure sold. So again, let's recap. We spoke about the Mechiras Chametz, how it evolved from times of Yerushalmi to our current minig, that the Rav sells it to us before us. The Rav sells to us as a shliach. We have there's numerous benefits to Rav doing that, and make sure he'll make sure it's done properly. He'll do these 6 kinyanim for us to make sure that the sale is valid. He might even be masked for us to make sure that in case, even for whatever reason, all these 6 kinyanim fail, there's still a backup plan. And we spoke out the idea of paying the Rav to make sure that he does a good job for you to sell it. Okay. So now, if you anyone will leave by now, you would say, okay, it's a great sale, everything is valid. Besides that one shita of the Ritzvah, who implied in the beginning that there's question on this sale, maybe it's trickery, everyone else seems to say it's great. So if I'll leave you like that, I would be cheating you. There are many places who take great issue with the sale. We're not going to be able to discuss all the issues. We're going to discuss some of the main points. The most quoted attack on the way we do a mechira is from a sefer called Bechor Shor, written by the same person who wrote the sefer called Tvua Shor, Rabbi Alexander Shor. He was a great paisik. His main, I guess, forte in halacha was chulin, hilchos treifes, shchita. He wrote a tremendous sefer that is used extensively to this day on the halachas of shchita and treifes and all those type of bloody areas of halacha. But he was a master of all areas of halacha, and he writes in his chidushim in Masechtas Tzachim the following. He says this. He doesn't quote the Ritzvah because again, I don't think he had the Ritzvah. The Ritzvah, the way we have it, is a quote-unquote new Rishon. It wasn't available a couple hundred years back to all the Gedolei Achronim. And Bechor Shor writes, though, this is harama. This mechira, it's just straight out trickery. And he has a proof. We're not going to dwell on this proof so much now. He has a proof from Hilchas Shabbos, from various Gemaras and Masechtas Shabbos, that harama, to do a form of trickery, is only permissible when the potential isser is the Rabbanon. Anytime you deal with the potential isser, the Araisa, harama doesn't work. And therefore he says that here we're dealing with a potential isser, the Araisa. Only chametz on Pesach is a Torah prohibition, and therefore to do a trick to get me out of that by selling it an hour beforehand so that I don't own it, and then buying it back an hour, right after an hour after Pesach, he says that's a form of trickery. He just says that for Davar Pasha. He says that's simple to him as trickery. And therefore he says, again, he proves from a Gemara in Shabbos that harama is only mutter in D'Rabbanan, not for the right. Therefore he's very hesitant to rely on this. He says, however, if you sell it after the Kol Chamira, then it's okay. Because if I say the Kol Chamira, again, I'm saying Kol Chamira is declaring that all my chametz is hefker. If all my chametz is hefker, then I don't have to sell it to a guy. But just in case I didn't have it full-heartedly, want to sell it to a guy also. Says in that case, then he would allow you to sell it because then it's only a shiur of D'Rabbanan. Because Midaraisa you declared it to be hefker, so Minat Torah you declared it ownerless, and now you want to just cover all bases and you want to sell it to guy. Then it's only a shiur of D'Rabbanan. It's only would be a rabbinic restriction, and therefore he would allow this quote unquote trickery sale to go forth. But the way we do it, we don't go with this b'chor shah. We'll see why in a minute. That the Rav sells it before we do Kol Chamira, because we don't want to own the chametz at all, then the b'chor shah will be very against this form of sale, and he would say illegal procedure. Now, again, the Gedolei Achronim, Roiv Achronim reject this b'chor shah, this opinion, although there were volumes of books written both ways in this argument, many of them by the grandchildren of this b'chor shah, of this sefer, to prove their grandfather's position is correct. But out of the family, many of the Gedolei Achronim, including the Chassam Sofer, the Nesivos HaMishpat on the Nesivos, wrote a sefer on Hilchos Pesach called the Makar Chaim, and the Tshuvas Oinig Yontif, who was a big Rav in Bialystok. Many other Gedolei Achronim, they all reject it for various reasons, and maybe next year we'll give a whole shiur just on the reasons why they reject it, and they prove that harama, trickery, is permissible even in Torah law, even in case of Torah. A lot of riots this way and a lot of riots that way. We're just going to leave it like that for now. But one thing I want to share from the Chassam Sofer, which is on this page, number 5, the Chassam Sofer they presented with him the following case that happened. Real life story. There was a Rav, Baruch Frankel, a tremendous guy, who in his days, he was slightly before the Chassam Sofer, what happened in his town was as follows. There was a Malshin. Now, a Malshin is usually someone who we don't like. He's one of those self-hating Jews who tries to cook up trouble and do all that and report on various practices the Jews are doing to get them in trouble with the government. So there was this Malshin, a guy we don't like, who went over to the local government during Pesach and said, you know what's going on? You have a whole community of Jews here evading taxes because there is a law of sales tax, whatever the exact parameters were in that town at the time, and any sale that goes on, you have to pay sales tax. You have Jews, hundreds of Jews selling their chametz to the guy before Pesach, and not one of them paid sales tax. See what's going on over here? The Jews hate you and they have to get the government, blah, 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 and it's created a big uproar in the government. What's going on? The Jews are not paying taxes. Well,
when you buy it back.
When you buy it back, it wasn't good for the Jews. Look at the Jews are doing and the Jews are avoiding to pay taxes. Either way, the taxes are not being paid, and they wanted to get the Jews in trouble. So the Chassam Sofer says, and no, what happened? The government looked into the case, and they said, there's no sales tax necessary here. This whole sale is just for religious purposes. It's not really a real sale. They just do it for a week to avoid this religious prohibition of owning chametz. We don't care about it. We'll waive the tax. And the Jews, of course, are very happy. No taxes. Great. But now the Chassam Sofer has asked the question, doesn't that invalidate the sale? If the government is refusing to recognize the validity of the sale by waiving the sales tax, wouldn't that imply that the sale is a big joke? And that would invalidate the halachic validity of this sale? The Chassam Sofer says, don't worry, calm down. The sale is still valid. The government happens to be being nice to us in this case. But they know, because they know that we're doing it for a religious purpose. We're doing it to avoid the prohibition of owning chametz on Pesach. That's true. No one's arguing in that case. But it says the Chassam Sofer, the lemaisa of the sale is valid, like we spoke about before, there's various kinyan going. And if truth be told, the guy would really want to take possession of all the chametz, and he would show up, and he would take it, legally he's allowed to do it. And then, he says, the Chassam Sofer says, then the government would enforce the sales tax probably. Because there you would see that the sale is actually coming to fruition in the full sense of the term. But at this point, although halachically 100% all the acquisitions, all the kinyanim done were valid, and this chametz was sold, but since the government didn't see the sale actually coming forth, they didn't actually see the chametz being used by the guy. That's why the government was lax on this area. But truth be told, he says, if it would come out that the guy would actually take the chametz from us and not give it back to us, then it's true, the government would charge sales tax and everything would be great. The only reason why they were lenient, says the Chassam Sofer, was because they love us. We're out of time. Okay, we're gonna try to finish up. There's a lot of other issues. We're gonna cut to the chase because I'll start off with a big question, and we're very far from answering the question yet. But the point that we're trying to make is that the sale is very valid. If the sale is very valid, what was the question we started with? The question we started with was, maybe some people weren't here in the beginning, was you have a guy who owns a liquor factory, and he passes away over Pesach, $1 million worth of schnapps, and now the two sons are fighting over the inheritance. The Bachar claims he wants Tishnayim, he wants double portion. The younger son claims that what? Nothing doing. The father didn't own during Pesach, and the older son says, yeah, but Lamaisa, come on, it was really that father, we all know, I want to get double portion. All right, I got lots to say, but we're going to cut 5 pages out. Yeah, you can also Pesach. Your wife is waiting for you to clean for Pesach. So, seemingly, according to the way I set it up till now, even though there were some poskim who were hesitant on the sale, it seems to have been the accepted practice for generations, and you'll see over here, number 7 on the page, Moshe Feinstein. This is a quote from Moshe Feinstein. He even says it in Yiddish. He holds, of course you can sell chametz, of course it's valid. Many other places hold that. There is a shita of the Megayin, and some people were makbid not to do it. We're not going to discuss that now because we're out of time. But, so the Shalom Meshiv, how did Shalom Meshiv answer the original question? What did Shalom Meshiv say? He said, you're right, the sale is valid. But the Bachar will get Tishnayim. How can that be? How can we say the sale was 100% valid, this chametz was sold, but the firstborn son gets a double portion? That seems to be a steer, it seems to be a contradiction. Says the Shalom Meshiv, he calls like this. Even though it's forbidden to make a stipulation in the sale, the place can speak out among Avraham and the Taz learn that it's prohibited for the guy to sell the chametz to another yid after Pesach. Meaning, after Pesach is over, if let's say, I'm in St. Louis, and I would run to Chicago and go to the guy in Chicago that bought all the chametz, and I would say, quick, sell back to me, I want to get all those Jews chametz from Chicago. Says the poskim, I'm not allowed to do that. The yidden who sold the chametz to the guy have first dibs, have first right to get their chametz back. Not a stipulation, there's a fine line how he draws this distinction. Not a stipulation sale, but they have a certain chazaka, a certain right that allows them to get first dibs back on the chametz. And therefore, that muchzak, that chazaka that they retain on the chametz is enough that it's considered like the father during Pesach. Even though the father died during Pesach, the guy owned it 100%. We're saying 100% the guy. We're not saying the guy didn't own it. 100% the guy owned it, but since the father had first dibs, first right to buy it back after Pesach, that makes him a quasi-muchzik on the chametz. Not that he owns it, but makes him a quasi-muchzik on the chametz, that he has a quasi-relationship to it, so to speak. And therefore, after Pesach, since they had first right to get it back, and they legally do get it back, therefore the Bachar still gets Tishnayim. So, at the end of the day, we cut out a lot of points, but at the end of the day, the sale 100% valid. Nonetheless, the Bachar could still get the double portion because you're muchzik in the chametz. Well, if it's ra'i, then you don't get it, because Eina Bachar Noito Pishnayim B'ra'i. Yeah, but even muchzik, it's a watered down muchzik because you're not owning it, right? It's like, for example, if I'll go, nothing to do with Pesach, if I'll go over to a guy who's driving some Corvette, and I would say, yeah, I know your Corvette is not for sale, but I know one day you're going to sell it. Can we make an agreement that whenever you sell your Corvette, I get it first? I want to be the first offer? And that could be a legal transaction. Do I own the Corvette today? Absolutely not. I have no bias, I have no ownership on, but I have a certain right that I have first right to get this item. So that's basically what we're saying over here, that the person who owned the chametz, and that's enough for Yerusha, that's the question, okay?
Or Ben Yerucham would
No, he says this even according to Shulchan Aruch pass like a Ben Yerucham, because you don't own the chametz. There's no question here. I'm not owning chametz. And it's not a Tanai. I'm not making. You don't have to speak this out. The Melgar Ram and Taz learn this is an unspoken. It's an anan sadi. It's an unspoken stipulation that this works. And therefore, Moshe Feinstein passed like this also. Not regarding this case. I know how Moshe Feinstein would pass on this case per se of the Bechor, of the Yusha, but there's a question if we rely on this Magen Avraham and Taz or not. Some places say we don't rely on it. Moshe Feinstein held in the Tshuva to refine agreement that we do rely on it. So that could, I don't know if you would agree with this stock or not. I don't have the right to say that, but at least I know that it's a valid halachic opinion according to many Gedolei Achronim, and therefore you consider enough of a muchzik on it. And thank you very much for coming. And sorry, I
Why do we pick up the handkerchief when the handkerchief with the rabbi?
Okay, excellent. Because there it's not necessary. If you don't do that, then you can do it on the phone, according to the strict letter of the law. But we do that to, put into force, to validify, and to show the strength. We're being makneh, we're making it our agent. We're giving the power of attorney over all of our chametz. We want to solidify that by doing it through a kinyan chalipin, and again, it's not necessary. It's just a chumrah, so to speak, that to show the significance of the fact that we are giving him full permission, and we're giving it to him. He's our agent.
So what is it?
It's a kinyan chalipin.
So it's not your.
At that point, it's not kinyan.
Well, you're being makneh. You want the Rav to be your shliach.
You're not being makneh to the Rav.
Well, you're making the shliach, right? You're giving the Gemir stas that I want you to be my agent.
So how does the
That's one of the aspects of kinyan chalipin. We can discuss that different time.
It's not mine.
Right. That's a shaila in the chalipin. There's machlokes in the Gemara already who the item has to belong to, and this is if it belongs to the guy who's doing the kinyan, the guy who's being the makneh or the kohen. Right. That's a machlokes in the Gemara already, and we learned this out from Ruth. Maybe before Shavuot we discussed how kinyan chalipin works. So the source of kinyan chalipin is from Boaz and Ruth. And okay, thank you very much everybody for coming. And